Well, hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, we're looking at the Greatcarve Shield 1 laser enclosure. Well, I am no stranger to laser engravers, and as well, I am no stranger to laser engraving enclosures. I have several of them, and some are good, some are bad. They have their flaws. And the problem is with these enclosures, not all of them fit all lasers. There are some open frame lasers that just don't fit in certain enclosures, and that's kind of what I'm looking at now. So I was looking at building my own and looking into different options, and coincidentally, I got an email from the people at Greatcarve who said, hey, would you like to check out our acrylic enclosure? I'd be a fool to say no, so that's what we're going to look at today. So why don't we head over to the bench and see what the folks at Greatcarve sent me out. Well, this is the package as it came to me yesterday, and we're just going to crack it open and see what's inside. Well, for starters, we have an envelope of something. Oh, it looks like lasering materials. So we have some lasering materials here for engraving. Several sheets of it. That's very cool. Looks like 9 sheets. All right, so we'll be trying that here on the show and giving that a whirl. And we also have our quick guide for, I'm assuming, our assembly. Everything seems to be extremely well packed. It's nice and tight all the way through. Everything is definitely well secured. And then we have our panels for our enclosure. So let me get this all taken apart and get all the protective plastics taken off of our parts. And we'll go through and we'll assemble our enclosure. Well, one of the very first things I noticed about this enclosure is that all of the hardware, with the exception of the dust port, all of the hardware is all metal, which is nice to see. There are a lot of companies that are getting away from using quality metal brackets, but this stuff here seems to be great. They're all metal. Even the hinges are metal. Every piece that comes in the kit is very well labeled. Part G, front splash, C, upper carrying handle cover. They're all labeled, and all of those labels coincide with the manual, which is also very clear as to what to do, with all of the pieces very clearly labeled. So I don't think assembly is going to be a problem. It even comes with all of the bolts, all of the nuts, all of the Allen keys and the little wrenches. So all you need to do is put it together. Now guys, I've measured the thickness of this acrylic, and honestly, it's 11/64 of an inch thick, which is just shy of 3/16 of an inch, which is a good, hefty, thick acrylic. As well, all of the outer edges, all the way around, anything that would have exposure to your hands is all got a really nice round over on it that's extremely smooth, so there's no sharp edges at all. All right, so let's start by getting this together. And the first thing that we're going to put together will be the main box of our enclosure. Now, because I'm working alone, I have a couple of miter clamps down in the bottom just to help me hold things until I get a few of the enclosure's brackets in place. Now, the nuts for this fit very nicely inside our bracket here, and all we need to do is line it up, and we're just going to do this finger tight for now. And we can just get those brackets screwed in place. Now guys, if you do have the ability to have somebody help you, that would be preferable, but it's not a difficult assembly, so you can do it on your own. I've said it before here on the show that when it comes to a battle between acrylic or plastic and metal always wins. So don't crank these on. They are nylon bushing nuts, so they will hold tight and will not loosen up over time. So for this step, we're just going to get our front panel G connected to our right panel D and our left panel E. Get all of those bolted in, and then we can carry on with installing the back panel. Well, I've only installed the top two corner brackets. I don't want to install the bottom ones just because I think it'll be easier for me to do it if I flip it completely upside down. But I don't want to muck around with it too much and flip it upside down until I get more stability. And the only way for me to get stability is to install the back panel. Now that is panel F. Again, very, very clearly labeled. And we'll just get that panel, put it in place, and install it in the same fashion that we have installed the front panel. I have to say, guys, that these brackets that hold these corners together, they're really well designed. The way that they hold the nuts perfectly, no need to get a wrench in there. It's very easy to tighten them. And the bracket, in fact, acts as a wrench and holds the nut securely so that you can tighten up the bolt without worrying about having to hold that nut from spinning. Especially with that nylon bushing on the interior, there is a lot of resistance when spinning the bolt into that nut. And with 8 of the 12 brackets installed, we're just going to flip this thing over onto its head, and we will put in the last 4 brackets to really make this thing solid. Now, even with the 12 brackets installed, you want to be careful whenever you're moving this around at this point, because there's still a possibility for this to rack and snap the corners of the acrylic. So just be careful if you're moving it around. So with all those corner brackets installed, we can now install our flange for our vent system. So once we get our vent shroud installed, we can spin it around and install our stainless steel nameplate on the front panel G. Well, some of you with sharp eyes may have already noticed, but in my haste to put this together, regardless of how clear the instructions are, I put the one side panel in backwards. It should have the hole for the cables, etc. at the front, and I've spun it around and put it to the back. So I'm just going to reverse this one panel. It's just a quick removal of 6 bolts on each corner, and we'll get this spun around the proper way. Well, we now want to install our back panel here on the top, panel A, and that will solidify everything and eliminate that racking that I was concerned about. So we need a couple of these brackets. It's the same brackets that we used in all of the corners, and we're just going to install 2 of them here. One on panel E on this side and one on panel D on the other side. One thing I neglected to mention here is that there's also one of these angled brackets that will go into the back panel, panel F. So we'll just put this one in as well. Now these hinges on panel A will get installed using the countersink style bolts that it comes with, and as well those nylon bushing nuts. However, I wouldn't tighten these right up just yet until we make sure that all of our door panels are perfectly aligned. There is a little bit of play here in the recesses for these hinges, so there is a possibility that we could put them on a little crooked. So for now, we're just going to snug them up a little bit, but don't tighten them right down. Well, you want to install these panels in the order of their letters. So A at the back towards me, and then B is your next panel. We can install the hinges here the same way we did on this one, but on the B panel, the hinges get installed underneath on both the B and the C. I don't think we need a video of installing these 2 panels in the hinges. It's the exact same process. So I'm going to get those done, and then we can move on to installing the handle. Alright, and with our hinges done, the last step is just to install our handle on the front of our panel C. And it's just a couple of the larger bolts. It's the largest ones in your little tool kit. Pretty hard to mess them up. And then we can snug that up with the provided Allen key and wrench. Okay, and at this point I'll remove all of the protective plastic. We'll get the laser set up in here. We're going to see how it fits. And you know what? Let's give it a test spin to see how it goes, especially with that 4-inch exhaust port. Well, the laser I have installed in the enclosure is one of the most awkward lasers for me to get inside an enclosure, and that's the Longer Ray 520 watt. Guys, that's because of its integrated front control panel. It usually doesn't fit in a commercially available enclosure, but this enclosure fits it perfectly with plenty of room to spare. I've easily got 3 inches on either side and at the back, and a good inch in the front. I can move this however I want. One of the first things I noticed when I put this in here was this. Listen to how much sound that drowns out. From the fan of the laser constantly going, this is really deadening the sound. And one of the things I like already in comparison to my other enclosures is that I can see what's going on. The other enclosures only have one small window right here that you have to peer down through to be able to see what's happening. The opening is large. That double hinge opening really gives you a lot of room to get in here and work and place your pieces. So I want to do a test burn to give this 4-inch port a test. I have an inline exhaust hooked up to it, venting out the window. Normally the 3-inch hoses, they vent it half decently, but there's still smoke in the enclosure, and this is a cutting. I'm going to cut some of our reusable bag tags that I did here on the show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the camera up over here. I'm going to start this burn going and fire up the exhaust fan, and let's see how well this goes. Because with a lot of enclosures, if they don't leave enough ventilation space, if they make it too airtight, you just create a vacuum and nothing really gets vented. So let's see how the Entosun deals with the smoke of a heavy-duty cutting. And we'll just open it up right away and see what the smoke is like. Well, there isn't any. That 4-inch port does an amazing job. That's fantastic. I don't even smell it. That is great. And there you have it. The Greatcarve Shield 1 laser enclosure. Guys, I don't know what to tell you about this enclosure that I haven't already mentioned throughout the video, but what I can say is that I have been working with this enclosure for quite a bit. I've kind of been working with it for a couple weeks now, truth be told, and I love it. It is fantastic. It has given me the ability to have a designated shop laser out here hanging on the wall that is always in that larger enclosure, giving me the 4-inch exhaust, venting it out the window of the shop, giving me the sound dampening quality of the acrylic, and giving me the safety that I need with the protection for my eyes with that filtering acrylic. Now, that doesn't mean that you can just throw away your laser engraving glasses. I would still suggest wearing them. I just wish a laser company would come up with one that fits over top of your prescription glasses, because I haven't found a half-decent pair that does that yet. But at least with the Greatcarve enclosure, it filters out that light for you. And while I'm not sitting there staring at my work as it's happening, it's nice for me to be able to go over and have a quick little peek to see the progress. Now, with that being said, that's another great thing about this thing being all acrylic, is that it lets all of the ambient light from your shop in onto your engraving. With all other enclosures that I've had to add LED lighting on the interior because you just can't see what the heck is going on in there. But with the Greatcarve Shield 1, it allows all the light in. So whether you're looking down through the top with the doors open, or whether an engraving is happening and you're peeking in to see how it's going, it's fully lit. It's fully illuminated by the light that's in the room. And you're not just looking through this little window that most enclosures encompass. You are looking at the entire engraver, which is really nice.
You can see if there's any other potential problems while engravings are happening. Who knows, maybe your air assist hose is getting hung up on the frame. But if you're looking down through just a little window, you may not see that. But being able to see the entire laser while it works, you would see those problems before they happen, and you would be able to correct them. The cable management out the sides of this enclosure, while it may seem a little small to you, I don't think so. I think I would rather that smaller opening to corral those cables either out through the right or through the left than to have a large opening where they all come pouring out. I think it works. It works for this enclosure. Either way, guys, if you are in the market for a laser enclosure that looks good, works well, gives you room to work, has the height if you want to add risers and a rotary tool, something to think about. If it has all this stuff plus that 4-inch exhaust, I love that. If you are looking for something like this, you might want to check out Greatcarve and their enclosure, and I'll put all the links to it down below. I want to thank the good folks over at Greatcarve for sending me out this enclosure. I really think they have a good product, and if I didn't, I wouldn't be saying so on my show. You guys know that I try to provide quality information for you and give you my honest opinion. And if I did not like it, well, it wouldn't be the first time that I kind of tore apart a product on my show. So either way, Greatcarve, you're safe because I love your enclosure. Guys, if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We have an amazing audience base here, and I'm hoping that you're going to consider becoming a part of it. I'm going to put all the links down below, guys, to all this stuff, as I said, and I hope you're going to check it out. Greatcarve has more than just enclosures on their website. They have engraving products. You might want to check them out. They've got some pretty cool stuff and a newly renovated website that looks great. So either way, guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed today's content. I hope you're going to give the Greatcarve enclosure a look for your own shop. And more importantly, I hope you're going to join me again next week when I bring you yet another Alternative Tuesday.